I never thought my sister's visit would lead to a heartbreaking family secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The clock ticked loudly, each second weighing down my heart. I stood alone in our old living room, dust motes swirling in the sunlight filtering through the curtains. It was supposed to be a happy reunion. But something in the air felt off, like an electric charge before a storm. Sarah arrived, her laughter like music, yet her eyes held secrets. I could see the tremor in her hands as she set her suitcase down. A cold breeze whispered through the open window, sending chills down my spine. "You okay?" I asked, forcing a smile. She nodded, but the lump in her throat told me otherwise, that we used to be inseparable. Growing up, we shared everything: secrets, dreams, even a hideous pink diary filled with our wild fantasies about becoming pop stars. But she left for college and the distance stretched like an invisible barrier. I felt abandoned, watching her life unfold online. But today, she was here. I sensed she was hiding something heavy, coiled tightly in her chest. As we sat together, silence engulfed us. I poured her a cup of steaming tea, the comforting aroma filling the space between us, but it did little to ease the tension. She glanced at the family photo on the wall, a portrait of smiles that felt like a lie now. "Do you ever think about Mom?" Her voice barely broke the silence, but it sent a jolt through me. I hadn't thought of her in weeks, not since the letters started arriving. Strange letters, penned in a shaky hand, whispering secrets from the past. They haunted me, swirling in my mind like the shadows growing longer in the fading light. Sarah hesitated before speaking again, her voice trembled. "There's something I found out." My heart raced. There it was. The breach of the calm surface of our lives, waiting to explode. "It's about Dad." The very mention of him pushed my heart into a free fall. What could there be to say? He left, vanished like a shadow at dusk, and we had made peace with it. What about him? My voice quavered. I held my breath, feeling the walls close in, knowing this could change everything. "That I don't know how to tell you." Sarah swallowed hard, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I found something in his old things. A letter from someone named Emily." The weight of her words hung heavy, suffocating. Emily? Who was she? A ghost from a past I didn't know existed? The air grew thicker as she fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking. "She's claiming he had another family." The room spun. My heart sank to my stomach, choking me. How could this be? We sat in stunned silence. The walls of our lives cracked, the foundation of everything we thought we knew trembling. My breaths came shallow and fast. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, a betrayal of all the composed anger I thought I had. "Why didn't we know?" I whispered, my voice lost in the growing chaos of disbelief. Each word fell like a stone, heavy and unyielding. What else was he hiding? I wanted answers, but the only sound that filled the silence was the distant echo of my shattered heart. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The world outside continued to swirl around us, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing within our walls. I took a shaky breath, fighting the wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. The warm tea grew cold in my hand, forgotten, as I processed Sarah's revelations. Another family? I echoed, my mind racing back to the years we'd spent grappling with our father's absence, always believing it had been a choice made by a confused man. A choice that left scars on our hearts. Sarah's face crumpled as she shook her head. This changes everything, doesn't it? I thought I was just trying to unravel the mystery of his disappearance, but now it feels like we never knew him at all. Her voice tremored with raw emotion, and I could feel my sister's pain intertwining with my own. Who is Emily? What does she want? The questions tumbled out of me, desperate for clarity, but the deeper my need for answers grew, the heavier the weight of uncertainty pressed down. I don't know, she whispered. But she knows things. Things about his life, our lives. Sarah's hand went to her throat, rubbing invisible chains. I think she wants to meet us. The suggestion hit me like a punch. Meeting this woman, this stranger, who could unravel everything I believed to be true about my family. It felt wrong, sinister even, but the flicker of curiosity ignited a deeper conflict within me. There was a softness in Sarah's eyes, a fragility wrapped in anger that made me ache for our bond to remain unbroken. Yet, I felt a dissonance growing between us, fueled by the distortion of truths that had lain dormant for so long. We can't just confront her, Sarah. What if it shatters everything? I'm not saying we should, she replied, her voice a steady thread amidst the chaos. But we owe it to ourselves to find out the truth. A silence fell again, pregnant with unspoken fears and desires. Each second stretched, taut as a bowstring, until Sarah finally broke it. I need your help. Help with what? To find out more about her, about them, she said, a gleam of determination sparking in her eyes. If Dad had another life, then we need to understand it. Otherwise, we're stuck here, paralyzed by questions. There was an urgency in her words that resonated with some unacknowledged part of me, buried deep under years of hurt and confusion. I nodded, perhaps more resolutely than I felt. Okay, let's find out who she is. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited a chance to reclaim our past, to unearth buried truths that had shaped our lives. As we began sorting through our father's belongings, the familiar scent of old paper and dust filled the air. I found remnants of his life scattered throughout the boxes, trinkets from our childhood, books he had loved, and photographs that told stories I hadn't learned yet. Among the images, one particularly caught my eye, the faded photograph of a little girl with curly hair, her smile wide and free, alongside an unfamiliar woman whose face seemed to radiate warmth. Beneath it, a date etched in fading ink, years before we were born. My heart stumbled. Was this the family Emily had spoken of? Just then, the vibration of my phone pulled me away from the reverie. It was a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. You must hear my side before meeting Emily. My heart raced with fear and anticipation. Who had found me? Who knew the fragile threads of our unraveling lives? Sarah, I breathed, showing her the screen. Her eyes widened, and we locked gazes, the air brimming with raw uncertainty. I don't know who this is, I whispered, but I think we're being pulled deeper into something we can't control. Without another word, we exchanged silent vows of courage. With the weight of our father's decisions pressing on us, we were about to step into the unknown, ushered forward by a stranger who threatened to reshape the very foundations of our reality. Are you ready? I asked, trembling at the precipice of new secrets, a fresh wave of dread mingling with the flickers of hope we had ignited in each other, and just as Sarah opened her mouth to answer, the doorbell rang, echoing through our fragile moment of resolve. Each ring felt like a heartbeat, a countdown to whatever revelation awaited just beyond the threshold. The doorbell's chime sliced through the air, a jarring reminder of the world outside, of reality crashing uninvited into our carefully crafted moments of resolve. I exchanged a glance with Sarah, anxiety weaving through the air thick enough to touch. Who could it be? Her voice was barely above a whisper, laced with uncertainty. I don't know, I replied, my pulse quickening. But whoever it is, we can't ignore it. Steeling myself, I rose and moved towards the door, each step heavy with anticipation. Drawing in a breath, I opened the door, bracing for the unknown. My stomach dropped when I saw her, Emily, standing on our porch with an air of quiet desperation, her eyes wide and unblinking. The evening sun cast a golden hue around her, illuminating the contours of a face that was both beautiful and haunting. Hello, she said, her voice a soft melody wrapped in tension. Can we talk? The world felt unreal, the fragments of my life swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. I caught a glimpse of Sarah behind me, her expression caught between curiosity and apprehension. This was the woman who had the power to unravel everything, her presence an echo of our father's past filling the heavy silence of our fractured family. I stammered, glancing back at Sarah, searching for clarity in the chaos. I felt a rush of urgency mixed with a growing sense of dread. What's this about? Emily's gaze shifted, her brow furrowing as if processing the very fabric of her thoughts. I know this is sudden, but I've come to explain, to share the truths that I wish had been different. There was sincerity in her voice, a deep-rooted ache that beckoned me to let her in. I took a tentative step back, giving her the unspoken invitation, a fragile flicker of trust igniting a path forward. Okay, I said, stepping aside to let her in. I half expected her to shatter the uneasy sanctuary we had constructed around our shared grief. But you need to understand that we're not prepared for any more surprises, she nodded solemnly, her demeanor shifting as she crossed the threshold into our quiet home, the memories echoing around her like specters. She looked at the framed photographs hanging on the walls, her fingers grazing over the dust-coated surfaces, the connections to my past unraveling before my eyes. I know how much hurt there is, she began, as Sarah took a cautious position across the room, observing with a hawk-like intensity. Your father, he loved you more than you'll ever know. But before the love was clouded by fear, he had another life, one he tried so desperately to escape. Emily's voice quivered as she spoke, and I could feel the weight of her truths colliding with the fortress of anger I had constructed. He didn't choose us over you. There were circumstances beyond his control. I am not here to hurt you. I want you both to understand that. My heart pulsed with agony, the world shifting as I processed the enormity of her words. What do you mean beyond his control? What happened? She hesitated, searching for the right words to ease the clawing tension. He was torn between two families, a responsibility he never wanted. But if he had told you, if he had been honest, things would have been different. I believe he was trying to protect you. Protect both of you. As she spoke, my gaze fell on Sarah, whose expression mirrored my tumultuous feelings, furious yet broken, seeking answers coded within the gestures and hesitations of this stranger. What do you want from us? Sarah's voice pierced through, sharpened by a raw edge of pain. You knew him. All this time you've lived a life he abandoned. Now you expect us to just accept you? Emily winced, the hardness of the words pressing into her soul. I don't expect you to accept me. I came here to seek forgiveness for the role I unwittingly played in his choices. I never wanted to come between you. I wanted you to know the truth before it consumes you, before you make decisions rooted in misunderstanding. My heart twisted as I processed her plea. The fractures in my world deepened, the only thing we could both link together, the love we felt for our father, was now tangled in a web of betrayal, longing, and heartbreak. Then, in a moment that felt eerily surreal, the doorbell rang again, jolting our tension. I turned to see another unfamiliar figure appearing through the glass, a man, his shadow casting a long silhouette, looking anxious and determined. Who's that? Sarah exclaimed, her defensiveness surging as she caught sight of the new visitor. Emily's color drained. No, it can't be, she muttered to herself, panic flickering across her face. What do you mean? I asked, dread washing over me. Before she could answer, the man knocked on the door, urgency rippling in the air. I know you're in there. You have to listen to mites about your father. And in that moment, as threads of understanding began to unravel further, it became painfully clear. This night was destined to uncover far more than Emily's protective truths. It was moments away from tearing open the very fabric of the life we thought we understood. The air crackled with tension as Emily's eyes widened in disbelief, her hand instinctively clutching her chest. Please tell me that's not him, she whispered, her breath hitching. I felt as if the foundations beneath us were trembling, my heart racing as I exchanged a quick glance with Sarah, whose eyes were darting between me and the door, her expression a tumultuous blend of confusion and fear. This night was supposed to be about closure, I murmured, just loud enough for Sarah to hear. Instead, it's like opening an old wound. Emily remained rooted where she stood, frozen and pale, as if grappling with something far beyond her comprehension. I could feel the weight of my own uncertainty pressing down on me, threatening to crush the tiny ember of hope that had ignited amidst the chaos. The man at the door knocked again, this time harder, as if his urgency might break through the translucent shell of our gathering. I know it's a lot to ask, but you need to hear what I have to say, he urged, his voice cutting clear through the heavy atmosphere. Who are you? I called out, trying to inject a sense of authority into my tremulous voice. What do you know about my father? I'm just trying to help. He implored, desperation spilling from his words. I can't explain it all from here. Please, Just let me in. The conflict within me churned, a whirlpool of emotions threatening to drag me under. I glanced at Sarah, searching her face for any hint of guidance, but all I saw was an echo of fear mirroring my own turmoil. I don't know if we should, she finally whispered. What if he's here to hurt us, but what if he's telling the truth? I countered, our conflict only heightening the charge in the room. What if he knows something we need to hear? Emila's silent presence shifted, and suddenly, she took a cautious step toward the door. I know this man. Her voice was a quiver, filled with reluctant recognition. He was part of my father's life before. The revelation hung in the air, and I was struck by the sheer gravity of her words. What do you mean, part of your father's life? I didn't want to believe it, she admitted, a shadow of vulnerability slipping across her features. But he was in touch with my father right before things changed. The pieces were sliding into place like a jigsaw puzzle I had been missing for years, unraveling threads I hadn't known were woven together. Open the door then, I urged her, my heart racing as adrenaline surged through me. What do we have to lose? With one final breath, Emily approached the door, finger trembling as she rested it on the handle. She glanced back at us, uncertainty written across her face. Are you sure? Whatever happens, we need the truth. I nodded, my voice steadier than I felt. With that, she turned the knob and gently opened the door. The man stood at the threshold, an anxious soul unearthing a loss that transcended time. That I didn't think I'd ever get to meet you, he said, his eyes on Emily filled with an unsettling familiarity tinged with regret. I came to explain everything. Your father he didn't leave out of choice. It was to protect us all. Us. The word echoed in the hall, a crushing knot forming in the pit of my stomach. What do you mean by us? But he barely had time to respond before Sarah interjected, the fire within her sparked again. You're saying it was some twisted protection? You mean to say my father abandoned us for you, Sarah? Wait, I intervened, fear creeping into my chest at what the revelation might incite. Let him speak. As the man opened his mouth to share whatever burden he carried, I caught a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye, Emily recoiling slightly, as if struck by a sudden realization. The urgency in the man's voice grew frayed, like an old rope ready to snap. Your father had a reason, and if you think the pieces you hold are simple, you're mistaken, he pressed, his voice rising despite himself. What he sought to protect you from is coming back, and it's more dangerous than you can imagine. You have to listen to me. A shiver of cold dread curled around my heart as I studied first Sarah, then Emily, the air thickening with their unasked questions, the truths that lay just beyond the threshold of comprehension. That moment, the storm inside me surged as a revelation hid a memory of our father's last words now swirling like a ghostly fog. He was frightened, I murmured, half lost in thought. He spoke of shadows, things he feared might come to take us. What are you saying? Sarah's voice trembled, laden with fear and disbelief. You think this is all connected? I don't know, I whispered. But if it is, we need to face it together. Just when I thought we might find clarity, just when the web began to untangle, an ominous crack reverberated through the walls, resonating with a foreboding promise that a new storm would soon break. Each of us stood frozen in anticipation as the air shimmered with uncertainty, our hearts dancing on the edge of a barely whispered truth. And with that, a chilling wind swept through the room, carrying with it the faint sound of laughter that seemed to ripple from a time long lost, the kind that warned of the past rising to claim its due. As the laughter faded into an unsettling silence, the atmosphere shifted once more, tension hanging heavier than before. I stepped closer to Emily, whose gaze was locked onto the man at the door, a swirling tempest of emotions reflecting in her eyes. What are you saying? She demanded, her voice a thin thread barely holding the weight of her fear. What did my father do? The man took a deep breath, his eyes darting between us like a moth caught between flames. There are things about your parents' pasts that hold more power than you know. Things that were tangled in a web of love, secrecy, and sacrifice. What sacrifice? Sarah's voice quivered, her arms crossing protectively over her chest. You speak of our fathers like they were heroes, but they abandoned us. Sometimes protection looks like abandonment, he asserted, stepping forward, imploring us with his gaze. Your father and Emily's father were bound by promises made long ago. All they wanted was for you to be safe. But those promises, they can unleash shadows that grow and twist with time. Enough. I found my voice rising above the tidal wave of confusion that threatened to engulf us. All this vague speech, it's not helping. We need facts, not riddles. But the man shook his head, a shadow of regret etched across his features. The truth is fragmented and painful. I came not as a bearer of harm, but a warning. The heaviness in the air pressed harder against my chest, making it difficult to breathe. I glanced around at Sarah and Emily, trying to gauge their response. The initial spark of curiosity that ignited in Emily's eyes now flickered uneasily, the depths of doubt lurking just beneath the surface. "So what are we supposed to do?" she asked, her voice trembling as if it might break under the weight of her questions. "If our father's decisions led to this, if they put us in danger, what can we do now? Confront what they feared," he replied quietly, those words hanging like a specter in the air. "Your parents thought they had locked away a darkness that would never return, but it has found its way back. And it's seeking you." The realization crashed over me like a wave, cold and terrifying. I glanced at Sarah as her fear fueled the storm brewing within me. "You mean this is real?" she whispered, the walls around us suddenly feeling smaller, as if closing in. A low rumble of thunder echoed outside, punctuating the weight of the moment. I felt my pulse quicken as a rush of resolve clawed its way up from the depths of my uncertainty. This could not be how it ended, not like this, with shadows creeping back into our lives, but how? I finally asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "How do we fight something when we don't even know what it is?" For a moment, I saw the man falter, his eyes flickering with the knowledge of things he wished he could unknow. "You need the answers that were hidden," he said slowly. "And to uncover them, you must seek out the place where it all began." The old family estate, his words struck a chord deep within me, a place I had only ever seen in faded photographs, a home filled with whispers of love and sorrow. "The estate," I repeated, the memory of it looming in my mind like a distant lighthouse shrouded in fog. "Yes," he urged, the urgency of his tone wrapping around us like a lifeline. "You must go there. It is where your fathers once fought their battles, and where connections still linger. But be warned, shadows protect their own, and they will not give up without a fight." Just then, I felt the tension fray as if it were a spiderweb pulled too tight. A heaviness enveloped us as we all processed what was at stake. We were standing on the precipice between the light of understanding and plunging into darkness. "I'll go," Emily asserted suddenly, her voice cutting through the fog of uncertainty. "I need to know why my father did what he did." "Me too," Sarah echoed, her voice stronger now as determination began to bloom within her. "If there's even a chance that we can understand them or stop whatever is coming, I won't let fear control us anymore." As I looked at them, the sense of unity kindled a small flame of hope. "Then it's settled," I said, as conviction drummed through me. "Well, go together." But before we could move, a thunderous crash rattled the house, followed closely by an icy draft that swept through the room. A figure slipped through the doorway, a stranger cloaked in shadows, eyes glinting like shards of glass. My heart sank as the realization hit, a chilling premonition wrapping around my throat as I felt the energy crackle and pulse, a dark foreshadowing of what was to come. The man's face paled, and he turned to us, eyes wide with warning. "Run!" he shouted just before the cloaked figure lunged forward, the laughter from before haunting the air like a chilling promise. The world around us exploded into chaos as the line between our past and present blurred, dragging us into the very fight we feared but could no longer escape. The darkness enveloped us, a tangible force tightening around our throats as the cloaked figure advanced. I felt my body move almost instinctively, adrenaline igniting the primal instinct to flee. Emily and Sarah were just steps behind me, their breaths quickening as we scrambled out into the dim corridor. We dashed through the house, the echoes of our footsteps reverberating loudly against the walls, reinforcing the surreal nature of our predicament. I glanced back over my shoulder, half expecting to see the malicious eyes of our pursuer trailing us like a malevolent shadow. Instead, the man we had just spoken to was stepping forward, desperation written across his strained features. "Get to the cellar," he shouted, desperation flooding into his voice as he made a futile attempt to stall the figure. "I'll hold him off." "No!" I screamed, the word bursting from my lips with a fierce urgency. "We can't leave you." But the shadows enveloped him, rippling around his form as he pushed us toward the descending stairs. "You're the only ones who can prevent this," he urged, his voice a harsh whisper now. "You have to do this. Go." I could feel sadness choking my throat, but the instinct to survive overpowered the emotional turmoil raging within me. We tumbled into the cellar, slamming the door shut behind us, the weight of it a temporary barrier between us and the unknown terror above. Once we were sealed in darkness, I let the silence envelop us, and for just a moment, we stood there trying to catch our breaths, our hearts pounding like war drums. "What was that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling now, the earlier fire of determination dulled by disbelief. "2 Don't know," I managed, leaning against the damp, cold wall. As I surveyed the gloomy space around us, my mind searched for clarity amid the chaos. Random items lay scavenged through the dim light, like forgotten pieces of history. Old jars and dusty bottles lined the wooden shelving, time-worn and filled with things that had long since outlived their purpose. "I feel like we've stumbled into something we're not ready for," Sarah admitted, her voice breaking the quiet melancholy that hung heavily in the air. "What if we're in over our heads? We've already committed to this," Emily reminded us, her determination resurfacing in the stillness. "We can't turn back now. Whatever darkness our fathers locked away, we need to face it." I looked into her eyes, seeing the flicker of fire that sparked in her chest, the same fire I felt within myself, flickering against an encroaching storm. "But how?" "We don't even know what we're up against," I countered, uncertainty gnawing at my resolve even as I wished to uplift her. As we sat huddled together, another wave of unease washed over us, a distinct whispering of something lurking just beyond the threshold of our consciousness. A scent lingered in the air, a mix of mold and something metallic, almost like blood. The house was alive around us, charged with a sense of foreboding that commanded our attention. After what felt like an eternity, a faint light flickered from the far corner of the cellar. The illumination danced like a ghostly invitation, stirring something deep within me. "What is that?" I asked, drawn toward the glow as if it were a candle against the dark. "That I don't know," Emily replied, but she too was enticed by the light. Slowly, we pushed further into the gloom, inching toward the source. As we neared, I could see that it emanated from a small, ornate box resting on the floor. The craftsmanship was exquisite, carved with intricate designs that spoke of secrets and pain long hidden. Tentatively, I reached for the box, the moment imbued with anticipation. My fingers brushed against its cool surface, the engraving surprisingly warm beneath my touch. "Should we?" I asked breathlessly, wondering what it contained and if it would bring us closer to understanding or unraveling everything we thought we knew. "Yes," Emily urged, a sense of urgency in her voice. "We need to see what's inside." With trembling hands, I lifted the lid. As it creaked open, a rush of air roared through the room, distorting the light and casting strange shadows along the walls. A multitude of faces danced in the flickering glow, but the shadows clung tenaciously to the corners. Inside the box lay several old photographs, and as I sifted through them, a chill crept down my spine. Each image was of families happy and bright at first, but gradually shifting into darker scenes, filled with somber expressions. My breath hitched as I recognized figures in the photos, 2 familiar faces holding small children. "Is that?" Sarah stammered, her shock mirroring my own. The images told a story I wasn't prepared to face, a familial history tainted with smiles that only masked deeper truths. As I flipped through the stack, a note slipped out from between the photos. I unfolded it with shaking hands, the words speaking of heartbreak and promises mislaid. My heart raced as the implications struck, secrets long buried that could disassemble everything we thought we knew about our families. Suddenly, the door to the cellar shuddered violently. The sound reverberated against the walls as if something unfathomable was vying for entrance. Our hearts synchronized in a new pulse of terror. Then it happened. A shadow burst through the door frame, the dark figure we had dreaded finally emerging. As I turned to face it, the cliffhanger of my life lingered on my tongue. That moment revealed the bitter truth. We were not just uncovering secrets, we were standing at the threshold of our destinies, caught between truth and terror, waiting to see who would emerge victorious from the lurking darkness. The cold air prickled against our skin as the shadow coalesced into a figure tall, imposing, yet flickering ominously like an ancient nightmare. It stood before us, obscured in the darkness, its presence a storm that ignited every instinct to flee. But something anchored me in place, the realization that we were out of options and that fear itself had transformed into a tangible force that demanded confrontation. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice quivering under the weight of impending dread. The figure stepped forward, resolving into a face I half recognized but couldn't place a hollow gaze that seemed to reflect my own confusion and fear. I did not wish to show myself, it rasped, and though the voice was grating, the tinge of sorrow caught my breath. It was almost human, layered with pain and regret. Then why did you? Sarah demanded, taking a brave step forward, her fists clenched and trembling with visible resolve. Because, the shadow replied, its tone heavy with remorse, you have found what was meant to remain hidden. You are not prepared for the truth. With those words, the cellar grew colder, the shadows stretching and swirling in anticipation. I glanced at Emily and Sarah, our expressions mirroring each other's fear but also a flicker of determination that refused to be extinguished. We need to know, I said quietly, my heart pounding. If there's something dark lurking within our families, we have to face it. The figure hesitated, and it felt as though time itself wrapped around us. It seemed to weigh our resolve against the heavy burden of its own sorrow. I could sense a sadness radiating from it, a deep, aching wound that resonated within me. Who was this shadow, and what did it know about us? You will not find answers, you will find pain, it warned, conveying a sense of urgency that echoed in my chest. But you must also discover courage. You cannot unravel what you do not understand. What's hidden in those photographs? I pressed, desperate for clarity despite my awareness of the dangers lurking behind each question. What happened to our families? It took a step back, and I saw reflections of darkness stirring within its eyes, like an ancient storm threatening to unleash its fury. Years of betrayal and sorrow, bloodlines tainted by choices not our own, it whispered, sorrow sifting through the rough edges of its voice. You are entwined in a cycle that began long before you. Almost instinctively, I shivered. I could feel the weight of those images press against me, each one like a brand marking my soul, a reminder that we had inherited not only our parents' strengths but their secrets as well, woven through generations like threads in a tapestry. Emily stepped forward, defiance sparking behind her fearful gaze. Then help us break the cycle. Help us understand, what if the truth is worse than we imagine? The shadow warned, a low tremor running through its form as though it were a fabric stretched too tightly. What if heirlooms of deception lead only to despair? A moment of clarity washed over me, a flicker of hope amid the encroaching darkness. We have to believe that uncovering the truth can also lead us to healing, I said with newfound conviction, spurred by the understanding that we were more than our pasts. Each photograph we unveiled could be a chance to free ourselves from the shackles of history. It's our choice to navigate through the storm. The figure hesitated longer now, and its form flickered as if pondering our resolve. The silence stretched precariously, heavy with unspoken fears and shared vulnerabilities. Very well, it finally acquiesced, a shroud of resignation lacing its tone. But know that what lies ahead may fracture you. And the darkness that lurks is not just part of your family as it waits to reclaim you. With that, the shadow extended a gnarled hand, a tender offering blurred by darkness, inviting us closer while electrifying the air. I felt my heart race, the warmth of belonging thrummed faintly beneath layers of caution. As I reached out, a sudden rumble surged through the cellar, a tremor that shook the very foundations around us. The ghostly light from the ornate box flickered violently, and the photographs scattered across the floor, creating a chaotic collage that felt both sinister and hopeful, fragments of our past caught in a whirl of light and shadow. No. Not now. Sarah gasped, dropping to the floor desperately as she tried to tuck the photographs back into some semblance of order. Images of laughter twisted alongside haunting gazes. Once more, the door splintered, rattling on its hinges. Under the stress of whatever was bearing down on us from above, it threatened to break our fragile connection to understanding, hurling us back into chaos. Are you ready? The shadow asked, voice steady yet laced with trepidation, eternity hidden in its depths. Little did we know then, hope and despair were closely entwined, a thread that we were prepared to unravel, even as the ground below us began to crack. And just then, amidst the clamoring chaos and scattering shadows, as our eyes widened with fear, a chilling revelation washed over me. One of the faces in the photographs hadn't been an ancestor at all. A figure bore a striking resemblance, almost expressed innocence, of someone who still lived among us. Someone we had trusted. someone I had seen only the day before. The realization loomed heavy on my heart, choking the air from my lungs. What if, I murmured, revelation dawning, what if it's not just about our parents? What if there's more? Something we've overlooked? The room spun as the darkness pooled around my feet, swirling with the implications of that unnerving thought. I glanced at Emily and Sarah, their eyes wide with confusion and fear, mirroring the turmoil unfolding in my own mind. Who was the figure who looked so much like the sister I had spent the last few years getting to know? I could feel the tremors underneath my skin, a creeping realization that the weight of family secrets and hidden truths was pressing in on me from all sides. And oh, it can't be, Sarah stammered, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking the words aloud would somehow make them more real, more inevitable. How could we have missed that? Is it possible? Emily asked, her brow furrowing in an effort to process the unthinkable. Her fingers trembled as they reached for a photograph that had landed upside down, revealing the once familiar face, now a catalyst of dread and doubt. The shadow cast a long gaze among us, its form flickering with uncertainty. You stand at a precipice, darlings. The truth is often more insidious than you think, more dangerous. What you want to uncover may shatter the bonds you hold dear. Just tell us, I demanded, desperate for answers, desperate to quell the growing panic in my chest. Who is it? Why is this happening? The figure shifted, and a heavy sigh escaped it, laden with ages of buried pain. You must uncover it yourself. The truth is not a gift bestowed, it is a challenge you must confront. Only then will you understand its power over you. With that, the reeling darkness surrounding us seemed to pulse, allowing a moment of clarity. I felt as if I were standing before a long-forgotten mirror, one that might reveal not just the semblance of resemblance between my sister and the figure in the photographs, but the truth of our entwined destinies. Vivid images of the past flashed in my mind. My sister's laughter echoing through the halls of our home, innocent and carefree, a shield against the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Each memory, once cherished, now felt like a thread dangerously unraveling. What if we've stumbled upon something much larger than ourselves? I whispered, urgency tinged with fear. What if our whole lives have been shaped by a secret we didn't even know existed? Don't say that. Emily implored, her voice cracking under the pressure of burgeoning chaos. We can't afford to lose any more of ourselves to fear. But I could see the trepidation flicker across her face, the vulnerability we all carried. Each photograph we found seemed to cast deeper shadows over our fragile existence, threatening to dismantle the very foundations we stood upon. The tremor from before pulsed again, this time stronger, echoing through the air like crushing heartbreak. Dust rained down from the ceiling, painting the room in soft gray. Visions of my sister danced through my mind, a whirlwind of playful moments overshadowed by whispered concerns. Just before Sarah arrived, I caught a glimpse of a photograph, I confessed, my voice shaky with the fear of exposing raw truth. It bore a name that was eerily familiar. A name that echoed through our family history but felt obscured by time. It was her name, Emily. A silence hung between us, stretched taut by disbelief and unspoken fears, until Sarah finally broke it, taking a step back. But that's impossible. Our families have been intertwined, yes, but Emily, she's my sister. Not in the way that you think, the shadow intoned, its voice now almost tender. What unravels is not simply lineage, it is bonds of loyalty and love that can grow and flourish, yet suffer unfathomable rifts. You must decide what to do with this truth before it consumes you. As the tension thickened, I felt a dark wave of realization wash over me. Has she been part of this darkness all along? Is she a descendant of the secrets we've uncovered? And as if my thoughts called forth a tempest, the floor cracked loudly beneath us, splintering the moment. The photographs erupted into the air around us, swirling like a cyclone, illuminating faces and memories I had thought lost to time. In the chaos, a nameless fear began to claw at my heart, the kind that made my skin prickle with adrenaline. Finally, one photograph flitted closer to my eyes. It showed a younger version of my sister, smiling radiantly amidst family I did not recognize, yet I could not shake the feeling that they were crucial to this unfolding mystery. Emily, I gasped, my voice catching on the name that echoed louder with each stolen breath. Look, please look. I thrust the photograph toward her, praying for clarity even as dread threatened to consume us all. My God, they look just like you. Emily's hands trembled as she reached out, but before she could touch it, the photograph disappeared into the ether, as if the moment itself was a cruel trick of fate. Wait! I shouted into the whirlwind, my heart racing. We need to find it again. If those are your family, we need answers. The shadow watched us with an air of grim acceptance, lingering like a ghost of what was to come. What you seek lives among you, but to find it, you must be willing to confront discomfort and loss. The ground trembled violently once more, fracturing even more beneath our feet, and I took a step back, fear clawing at my throat. But the suffocating darkness spinning around us was just the harbinger of the fractures yet to come. Then, almost inaudibly, I thought I heard the shadow whisper, "The revelations that will unfold may tear your hearts apart, but as all beginnings often bring pain, they also pave the path to understanding. Why did you even come to visit, Emily?" I demanded, the words bursting free, raw, and enraged, knowing she was trapped in this situation regardless of intent. Her eyes widened, and it was then, through the expanding chaos, that my chest tightened with the realization that maybe her visit was no mere coincidence. And as our new emotional cliffhanger hung heavy in the air, I braced for the inevitable truth awaiting us on the other side of fear and darkness, a truth we had not yet encountered, but one that could change everything we thought we held dear. The air was thick with uncertainty, every breath a laborious task, as if the weight of what we had unearthed hung in the atmosphere around us. I could hardly process the storm of emotions bubbling within me: fear, disbelief, anger as I studied the two faces flickering underneath the dim light. Emily's confusion was palpable, a raw wound of revelations waiting to surface, while Sarah's eyes welled with tears, reflecting a despair that threatened to fracture our trio even further. "Why did you come here, Emily?" My words hung in the air, the implications looming larger than I could fathom. If her visit was part of something larger, if it was somehow connected to the shadow and the mysteries we were unraveling, it could change everything we thought we knew. Silence enveloped us as Emily faced me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I needed a break. I wanted to see you both. I thought a weekend together could bring us closer or tear us apart, I quipped under my breath, the bitterness surfacing a moment before it slipped beneath the surface, threatening to drown out the flickering light of hope that had once burned between us. "I didn't know," she cried, her voice cracking, eyes suddenly fierce with frustration. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I thought we could escape whatever shadows haunted us. I didn't know they would rear their head here." And now Sarah began, wiping at her eyes. "What do we do?" I wanted to shout that we would run, we would cast this darkness away, but those words felt hollow. It was consuming us, dragging us into a whirlpool of uncertainty. The photograph, the idea of Emily being intertwined with secrets I had yet to fully grasp, gnawed at me like a relentless parasite. That moment, the chaos around us fell silent, the shadows waiting expectantly as though they could sense our turmoil, ready to press us toward a decision. "Maybe we can confront it together," Emily suggested hesitantly, trying to bridge the chasm of fear that separated us. "We can face it, whatever it is. Maybe being together is the way out or the way down," I murmured, haunted by the understanding that the truths we lingered on, the roots of our very existence, might bury us alive if we were not careful. There was a furious energy vibrating beneath us, the ground groaned in acknowledgement of our fears, a threat warning against further probing. "Let's go back to the photographs," Sarah finally proposed, her voice steely with determination. "There must be more. We can't leave it like this." The flicker of hope ignited within me. The idea of unraveling the threads that tied our fates together felt like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. Gathering our courage, we began the arduous trek back towards the remnants of the chaos, sifting through memories that flickered like forgotten stars in a darkened sky. As we approached the remains of the explosion that had scattered the photographs, my stomach knotted with a sense of dread. Each image we found seemed to ripple with significance, bearing witness to our shared history while simultaneously flinging open doors to a past shrouded in secrecy. I reached out to pick up the first photograph, my hand trembling. "Wait!" Emily exclaimed, her voice electric with urgency, as she pointed toward a nearby corner. A shard of light broke through the gloom, a piece of glass reflecting the light in a way that caught her eye. "There's something over there." Following her gaze, I squinted into the dimness, stepping cautiously. A fragment of a larger photograph lay submerged in the dust, and as I drew closer, something cold slithered through me. The faces were unfamiliar, yet the eyes seemed to flicker with recognition, igniting memories I couldn't fully grasp. "Help me lift it," I urged the others, and together we reclaimed the photograph, pulling it free from the ground. When we turned it over, the world slowed, and I felt the breath leave my body. My heart raced as recognition crashed over me like a wave. "This is," Emily gasped in horror, realization dawning clearer than the brightness of the photographs we had sought. The faces staring back at us were strikingly similar to her own, yet they were enveloped in an air that felt impossibly distant and intimate all at once. Are they my family?" she whispered, eyes locked onto the figures, a mix of horror and wonder gripping her throat. "Or perhaps they are all connected," I added too soon, my mind racing. What if this is a lineage we never acknowledged? But the image held a chilling detail that rattled our very foundations. The two figures on either side of what looked like a family celebration bore more than just physical likenesses. They wore expressions that paralleled joy and sorrow, caught in an eternal moment of unrecognized truths. Before we could absorb the revelation, the floor tremored again, powerful and unrelenting. The photographs danced around us like angry spirits, and for a moment, it felt as if the walls were closing in, constricting our chances for escape. "Emily!" I shouted, desperate to break through the chaos. "We need to decide. This is bigger than us. We can't turn away from what this means, then let's confront it, together," she cried, emphasizing a fierce unwillingness to succumb, even against the roaring tempest. But just as I felt the promise of unity taking root in her words, a thunderous crash erupted from the other side of the room. The loud noise gathered momentum, forcing our gazes back to the shadow, which stood unaffected, watching as if relishing our plight. "Proceed if you dare," it intoned, its tone echoing strangely within the crevices of our inner turmoil. "But remember, what you seek may cost you more than your hearts." Then, as echoes of forgotten hopes resonated in the silence, I swore I caught a glimpse of something flicker within the shadows, something that appeared human, desperate, reaching out as if wishing to share its burden. And even though everything urged me to flee, to abandon this path of painful revelations, the gravity of Emily's presence next to me and the promise of confronting this dark tapestry drew me closer to a truth that could unravel everything I thought I knew. I awoke to stillness, the kind that reeked of dread, snapping me back to the cold reality that enveloped us. My heart was a drummer in my chest, echoing like thunder against the backdrop of everything I had begun to comprehend, truths that, I sensed, would reverberate throughout our lives forever. Emily's fingers brushed against the jagged edges of the photograph as shadows loomed just beyond our reach, their presence heavy and haunting. I turned to her, knowing that the moment to confront the darkness was upon us. "We can't turn back," I said, steeling myself despite my trembling heart. "We've come too far," she nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, reflecting both fear and resolve. "We need answers, and nothing will change if we ignore this." Something deep inside me twisted, the raw reality of the connections we had unearthed leaving me exposed and vulnerable. The possibilities were dangerously close to consuming us like a dark river, but there was also a flicker of connection emerging, a shared purpose rising up in defiance of the shadows. "What are we waiting for?" Sarah interjected, her tone ignited by a fierce determination that coursed through her veins. She stepped closer to the photograph, her voice steady yet barely concealing the storm of emotions swirling within. "If this is part of us, we have to face it." Consumed by a surging wave of courage, I stepped toward the flickering light of the photograph. "All right," I proclaimed, rendering myself vulnerable to the honesty woven tightly into our history. "Let's understand why we are connected. We must focus on Emily." I gestured toward her, "and your family," but in that very moment, the shadows shifted. With an abruptness that stole the breath from my lungs, the atmosphere transformed around us, brushing us with the cool touch of fate and casting us into a new reality, one that held memories we hadn't yet suspected. In the thick silence, a voice appeared, soft but profound, ringing with a familiarity that felt unsettlingly intimate. "Emily." It was a name dripping with warmth and pain, rising from the darkness like a forgotten lullaby. The proximity of that name tugged at something within me, anchoring me in place. My heart raced as I turned, searching the dim room until I found the source of that voice, a figure stepping through the shadows, eyes deep pools of sorrow, yet familiar. "I didn't want you to find out this way," it said, voice low and resonant. "I wanted to protect you both." Emily's breaths quickened, her eyes wide as she recognized the figure standing before her. "Mom?" she croaked, disbelief lacing her voice. The revelation was staggering, and I could see the subtle flicker of memories in Emily's gaze as she wrestled with the truth crashing down upon her. There was so much hidden behind that one name. The weight of grief swelled in the air, weaving through the fragile threads of our familial tapestry. "No," she whispered, stepping back, as if her grounding belief in reality was fraying too quickly. "But I'm here, sweet girl," her mother implored, her edges softening, "to help you understand." With that, the storm inside our minds erupted. The connection between the past and present trembled as the shadows danced in the corners, drawn to the unmasking of long-buried truths, ripping apart the veil that had shielded us from the deeper connections beneath the surface. "What are you doing here?" Emily's voice rose, raw with emotion as she sought answers from the very person who had shaped her so profoundly. "Why now? I had no choice," her mother replied, voice thick with sorrow. "I had to protect you from the weight of the truth, the darkness that brewed beneath our family ties. There were sacrifices made, bonds tested, and decisions I wish I hadn't had to make. Your father fought to keep the shadows at bay for you." She looked meaningfully at Emily, but then her gaze flicked towards me, an unvoiced connection between us that hinted at deeper layers of understanding. "And us," I added quietly. "What about Sarah and me? What do we mean in all of this?" "The ties that bind you are more complicated than you realize," her mother replied, stepping closer, her gaze locking onto Sarah, and then on me. "You were both meant to be a part of something larger, delivered into the world, often hidden from view. Circumstances turned us against our shared fates, but I'm here now because it's time to face the truth together." That I exchanged worried looks with Sarah and Emily, a triplet of uncertainty mingling beneath the surface. "Is it too late?" I asked, desperation clinging to my words. "Can we mend what has been broken? You must confront your history, embrace the chaos swarming in your hearts," her mother urged softly. "Only then will you find freedom, not just in understanding but in forgiveness. This fight isn't just mine to bear anymore, it's yours to navigate." As I processed her words, pieces of forgotten laughter wove together with the fabric of sorrow, while fragments of guilt sprawled across every moment between us. There was an undeniable, inevitable connection that whispered of unity, urging us to reach out beyond what we knew and face the unknown together. Emily's breath caught as realization ebbed through her, a mixture of vulnerability and fortitude filling the air. "Mom, we need your help to fight the shadows. How do we prepare?" Tension seemed to dissipate slightly as their connection solidified, and her mother offered a soft, bittersweet smile. "Strength lies in each other. Find the light anchored within your hearts. What binds you together is powerful enough to withstand the encroaching darkness. Eyes open, face the fear, for the truth will deliver you." In that moment, I felt an awakening, a burgeoning intensity coursing through us like a galvanic current, binding us in ways I could only begin to understand. The photographs scattered around us held more than just memories. They lit a path to brave confrontation, sowing seeds of courage that longed to burst forth. "It's time," I declared, determining to dismantle the apprehensions threatening to hold us back. "Let's confront this." With newfound resolve, Emily stepped forward, hand outstretched towards her mother, moist with urgency. Together, the word resonated in the haze, intertwining our voices. Three passionate souls pushed forward toward the truth, unflinching in the face of uncertainty. As we began to step beyond our tangible boundaries, an electric charge struck the air, a lingering hope weaving through the cords of our determination as we acknowledged the shadows that did not define us. They haunted us, yes, and threatened to gaslight our realities, but in that very surrender lay the chance for transformation. "Stay close," Emily whispered to us as we moved forward, solid ground forming beneath us, a hidden strength we didn't know existed, and at that moment, I vowed to uncover the truth, to embrace whatever lay ahead. As the darkness swirled around us, I felt a flicker of light ignite amidst the tempest, a glimmer of faith igniting hope. Stepping past the threshold, I inhaled deeply, ready to face whatever revelations awaited, forging new bonds of understanding, for where shadows lurked, light and love beckoned. Together, we would emerge tethered by the realizations that echoed in our hearts, ready to reclaim our family not merely as a tapestry of pain but a constellation of love, luminous against the shadows.